everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today, coming to you from the Sports Interaction Studio, where we always got something to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playalog. We are officially into winter meetings, everybody, so expect there to be a lot of rumors, a lot of rumblings coming out in the next 72 hours. What we are diving into today is a rumbling about Bo Bichette and the Boston Red Sox. I don't like it. I don't want to be having to talk about this, but hey, listen, if Toronto is going to be in the mix to go out and get Kyle Tucker, it's only fair for Bo Bichette to go and explore his market, and apparently his market is the Boston Red Sox.
Right, it's starting to heat up just a little bit. We haven't heard a lot about Bo Bichette, but of course, things are going to start to come out as teams start to figure out where they land in this market and what their game plan is. As we know, and we're going to talk about in this episode, we are looking heavily at Kyle Tucker, and the Boston Red Sox, their main focus is getting back Alex Bregman. But if things don't go their way and we don't get those number one targets, it's time to fall back on plan B. It just so happens that both of our plan Bs are Mr. Bo Bichette. It came out recently, yes, like you said, that the Boston Red Sox are pursuing Bo Bichette. And like I mentioned, if Bregman isn't the option, there are other options out there like Bo Bichette. That's what Ken Rosenthal said on The Athletic. So you said you didn't like it. How are you feeling right now? What are your thoughts on that?
Look, ultimately, losing Bo Bichette is one thing, and that's not going to feel good. Like, even if he goes to, a team way out there in the National League, like, even if he was like a Giant, for instance, like, still not going to feel good. I own his jersey, would love to have him back here, but ultimately, I could get over it if they go and they get Kyle Tucker and everything like that. Losing him to a division rival, though, that would especially suck, especially a team like Boston, because if I'm being completely honest with you, I genuinely think that he would play incredibly at Fenway Park. Like, I could see him being awesome there, and that kind of sucks. Like, I want, obviously, what's best for Bo Bichette, but seeing him dominate in a Red Sox uniform, that would not be great. And I know that we're kind of referring to this as like a plan B, whatever, for the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't necessarily think that Bo Bichette would be a plan B for the Red Sox. Like, sure, they're going to try to get Alex Bregman back, but if you actually had a deal on the table with Bo Bichette and you're the Boston Red Sox, I don't see them going and checking in with Alex Bregman. I see them smashing the accept button and getting that guy on their team, because honestly, he's a lot younger than Alex Bregman, and frankly, at this current juncture of time, I think he's probably a better offensive threat than Bregman is too.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would go for Bo Bichette over Alex Bregman because of like what you said. Like, I like him better offensively, and honestly, his numbers at Fenway Park are unbelievable. So are Bregman's, granted, but I mean, I could see him easily slapping that ball to right field, that open right field, for so many base hits, and then pulling a ball over the wall. Like, it feels like he's destined to fit that ballpark like many players are. But, looking at the Boston Red Sox side of things, like, does he fit into their roster right now? Because there is that big question where the hell he's going to play. They've got Trevor Story over there at shortstop that is on contract for at least another couple years. And then he's got a club option for $25 million in 2028. We'll wait and see if they end up picking that one up. But of course, like we talked about, Bo Bichette might not necessarily be a shortstop this coming winter into the 2026 year, He probably will be more destined to be a second baseman, and that feels like the direct fit there. But of course, second basemen get paid a little bit less than shortstops will do on open market.
Yeah, I suppose the one good news for the Toronto Blue Jays here is you have to imagine that Boston is going to be looking at him like a second baseman and not looking at him like a shortstop. And the reason why I say that's a good thing is because that theoretically should impact what it is that they are offering him financially speaking. Toronto should also be looking at him as a second baseman. I don't see the Toronto Blue Jays necessarily looking at Bo as a shortstop. This article was evaluating how much shortstops versus second basemen can get paid, how much that will impact his market. And effectively, the word on the street is if you're a top tier shortstop, you make $30 million a year. If you're a top tier second baseman, you get low to mid $20 million a year. And that is a sizable difference, because over the course of a 5 or 6 year deal, you're talking about an additional $40 or $50 million that isn't going to be there if he's getting valued as a second baseman, comparatively speaking, to a shortstop. So the fact that Boston is probably going to be looking at him as a second baseman is good news for the Jays, because theoretically that means that they're their finances should be roughly similar to where Toronto's finances are in valuing him.
Yeah, and it almost feels like the Blue Jays still have an advantage if it came to a bidding war between Blue Jays and Red Sox, because, yeah, if you're in the same financial value, well, I'd rather lean Toronto, where I played my whole career and I got Vladdy and all my friends and we just went to the World Series. So, that would outweigh Boston Red Sox, him going there versus here. He'd have to get a lot more money, which absolutely, that is awesome news for the Blue Jays. We'll see how that develops even more. But another market that will depend on what happens with Bo Bichette is, of course, the Kyle Tucker market. I said I'd bring it up earlier. We'll bring it up right now. Blue Jays right now, that's the number one guy. That's the number one guy they're gunning for. And it feels like around the winter meetings, everyone's thinking the Blue Jays are pushing hard for Kyle Tucker. We got an update right here per Mark Feinstein. The Blue Jays are making a strong push for Kyle Tucker. Obviously, they hosted him at the Florida Complex earlier last week. Tucker isn't expected, though, to make a decision before the end of the meeting, so it feels like he's still got to do his due diligence, go and visit with all the other GMs, with his agency, and try to hash out what his price tag is, because I've also seen other quotes right here from the winter meetings coming out. A lot of executives and MLB Network people think that Tucker might not necessarily get the $400 million he's been asking for because there's a lot less suitors. Yankees feel like they're out on him. He's not even going to visit Tucker. He's not even going to visit the Yankees facilities this winter. That came out. Dodgers feels like they're out on him. Mets have just paid Juan Soto. Feels like it's just like the Blue Jays and the Phillies that really have intentions of getting him. So with that being said, there's a lot less bidding war, so he might not get up to that number right there. So the Blue Jays, it almost feels like they're favorites, and it feels like it's almost a lock at this point that they'll get.
No.
Almost. I said almost. I didn't say they are
already
a lock.
can see the comments, but
I already said almost, because it's between. If you think about it, like I just said, it's Phillies or Blue Jays. Who's got the more financial power? You could argue one or the other, but who's got more motivation right now?
It definitely feels like things are lining up nicely here for Toronto when it comes to the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes. Now, as it relates to Bo Bichette, a lot of people are thinking that Bo and Bellinger and Schwarber and others are waiting on that one big domino to fall with Kyle Tucker. But here's where I start to wonder, and I start to think to myself, is that true? If there isn't as many people involved in the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes, then theoretically, why do you need to wait for him to sign? If your team, the one that you're looking at signing with, isn't involved in that sweepstakes, I know that that's not necessarily true with Bo Bichette, because Toronto's obviously involved. But, for other guys, you could definitely still be signing with Kyle Tucker still on the market. I just had that thought right now.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, yes, but then it doesn't really apply to Bo Bichette because, if his number one team is the Toronto Blue Jays, he kind of has to wait for the Blue Jays to figure out what they're doing with Kyle Tucker. And if the Blue Jays do sign Kyle Tucker, are they going to go make him an offer that he wants? I don't know. They've already spent $256 or committed to $256 million with those three starting pitchers. How much are they going to commit to Kyle Tucker? We have to find out. But are they going to commit that dollar amount to Bo Bichette? Bob Nightingale at this point, I know earlier he came on our show like about a month ago and said that there is a possibility they get both Tucker and Bo Bichette, but that was before Dylan Cease. And now Nightingale saying that, it basically, if the Blue Jays get Kyle Tucker, that would all but officially end Bo Bichette's time in Toronto. Now, we don't know because Bob Nightingale could just be predicting these things like we all are right here. But I mean, what kind of number would you be offering him at this point? It would just feel like almost overkill rather than necessity.
Here's the thing. I hope that report isn't also being reported to Bo Bichette, because that makes me nervous. Because if Bo is thinking to himself and his free agency is thinking, okay, Toronto, we want to wait for Toronto, but if they actually get the guy that they're reportedly getting, hopefully going to get, I'm not going back there, and then I'm going to get caught flat-footed, and then one of my potential suitors is going to be out of my bidding war. If I'm Bo Bichette, I don't necessarily love that. So I hope that, honestly, Toronto, and this is how you got to play this, right? You got to be telling him, like, you'd still be in his market, even if you get Kyle Tucker. Because if from Bo Bichette's standpoint, if that's the case, and you're seeing Toronto get closer and closer to getting Kyle Tucker, then you might panic sign with the Boston Red Sox, because you know what, you don't want to get caught flat-footed with one of your suitors out of the race already. Right. And then in that case, that'd be very scary for Toronto because obviously they need to lock down Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately for Bo Bichette, he is caught in a weird situation right now where we brought up earlier, like, are you a shortstop? Are you a second baseman? That money might be different from what you want. And then if your teams are leaving the market, or they lock down the big guy in Kyle Tucker, but the Blue Jays are interested in you, but now we're only going to be interested in you for a 3-year deal with options after that, or player options, or whatever.
Yeah, like what does that mean for me?
Does that mean I'm making less money? Does it make more money? Do I have to now like opt out earlier and see if I can go test the market next free agency? Because right now, like I'm not getting the dollar amount that I want. So I think it's going to be all depending on what happens with the market. We're kind of penciling in Bo Bichette 6 to 8 years, $25 to $30 million per year. It could be up to $200 million. That's penciled. But if the market develops and people are already locking down big names like Schwarber and Tucker and Bregman, and then Bo Bichette's kind of left out there as a plan B option or secondary option, he's not getting the big contract, that might change things for him.
Exactly. And that's why, honestly, I get a little worried when I hear about these Red Sox rumors, because if I'm Bo, you might want to mitigate the risk of any of that happening. And therefore for Boston, where, okay, yeah, like they're in on Bregman, but ultimately, like if you got a Bo Bichette deal done, like you are over the moon if you're the Boston Red Sox. He might hit that accept button prematurely to avoid that from happening. Now, that's the cynic in me. I hope that that's not true. Right. And ultimately, none of it would even matter if Toronto just got Cal Tucker. Because if they just got Cal Tucker, none of this means anything anymore, right? If you lose Bo Bichette, okay, you lose Bo Bichette. That sucks. But looking over here, folks, I mean, Cal Tucker is Bo, but just like a better version of Bo. He's just better. He is. You know what I mean? Like, I get the team camaraderie aspect and everything like that, but ultimately, Kyle Tucker is the more complete baseball player.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comparing them just based on this 2025 season, obviously Bo Bichette is the hit machine. I mean, no one can out-hit Bo Bichette. He's absolutely phenomenal at that. Batting average, that also goes with the hits, right? He had a little bit more slug than Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker had a little bit of a down year compared to his previous seasons in the big leagues. Only 22 home runs, still more than Bo Bichette, but he also offers a lot more WAR with the legs and the glove. He can steal bases and he can go field a pretty good darn right field if you need him to be. So for me, yeah, I mean, these guys are both around the same age. You can pick and choose which guy you want for the next 6 to 7 to 8 years on your franchise. They're both gonna be good, but if I were to pick one guy, I gotta pick Kyle Tucker because just from a physical standpoint, no offense, Bo Bichette, his legs are already given out on him. And Kyle Tucker still got some legs underneath him. I do think Bo Bichette's bat's going to play for a long, long time in the big leagues. I think he's way more talented than anybody in putting barrel to ball. But Kyle Tucker, I feel like, will last a little bit longer in terms of other skills that Blue Jays need to win ball games.
100%, folks. In conclusion, Bo Bichette's market, it is starting to pick up. And I think, honestly, you now have a limited runway if you're the Toronto Blue Jays to get this Kyle Tucker deal done, because there is going to come a time, I don't know when that time is, but there is going to come a time where if you're Bo Bichette, you start to get a little antsy. You start to get a little frustrated. You want to get a deal done. If Kyle Tucker still doesn't sign at that point and you're the Toronto Blue Jays, then you're going to be caught in a weird position right there trying to decide where to go with. Hopefully, Tucker takes this winter meetings, has the meetings that he needs to have with the other teams, and then come later this week, realizes, you know what? Toronto is the spot for me. And come Friday, he's a Toronto Blue Jay. And we don't need to worry about any of this.
Yeah, and then I hope to hear something come out where it's like we mentioned, like if the Blue Jays want to offer Bo Bichette some sort of other option contract where it's like we're going to front load it and give you a player option, kind of like a Bregman deal or a Cody Bellinger we've seen with the Cubs last couple of years. That would be good too, because I mean, hell, getting both would be pretty damn sweet.
That would be awesome, folks. But let us know what you think about all this in the comments down below. $4 a month, become a YouTube member. And thank you to all of our current YouTube members. You guys are amazing.
Guys, thank you so much for watching.
And as always,
go Jays, go!